On the website, you may find it interesting. Somebody has actually applied for a U.S. patent for the machine and for the technology. Now, it's my understanding that this may be a little tongue-in-cheek, that you can apply for a patent for just about anything. But I do find it interesting that somebody went through the effort to actually do that. You can see the link. It goes right to the government site where the patent is. As far as things that are unfolding, I think what's most interesting, and this is the thing that we forget, is that if John was wrong about a lot of things, like he said, hey, this is going to happen and it didn't happen, or that was going to happen, it didn't happen, that would be more memorable than the fact that what he said is continuing to happen over and over again. And the thing that stands out for me is the development of time travel technology specifically centered at CERN. I did a Google search just last week, and again, more and more scientists are coming out and saying CERN is the key to time travel. Here's the theory. We think it's real. And basically the theory that they lay out is exactly what John said it was going to be. And don't forget, 10 years ago, this was nothing but science fiction. The idea of multiple realities and universes and time travel at all was complete science fiction. And now, 10 years later, everybody is sort of saying, oh, yeah, it might be true. Yeah, absolutely. And if it wasn't for John, would we even have any idea that that was possible?
Well, and 10 years ago, Oliver, most of us didn't even know what was going on at CERN. We didn't even know it existed, even though they were building it. He did. To me, that sounds like a guy on the inside.
Right, and that's a very popular theory.
Let's go to North Hollywood, California. It's Carlos on the wild card line. Carlos, you're on with Oliver Williams.
Terrific, great. I've been wanting to talk about this. It seems like you remember the first show I heard of you, you were wondering whether he had made a mistake and wanted to fix it. I'm also wondering along that line, perhaps he's leaving himself time markers to tell if he's in the right alternate dimension, so to speaking. Maybe he's trying to fix things in that dimension so that it'll be the way he wants. He's traveling back and forth. Or maybe also, when 2001, maybe there was more than one John Titor.
Yeah, actually, that's, again, those are things that are starting to pick up on the Internet now. To go back to what you first said, according to John, the way time travel works, you can't fix something unless you stay there. In other words, if you identify something wrong on a timeline, you may be able to do something about it, but as soon as you leave, you're not going to be able to experience that fix at the next place that you go because each of these universes are separate and they're not connected to each other. The second thing you said about him leaving messages, that seems to be a very popular theory now, that if there were more than one or two Johns, that one way they could communicate with each other is by going back and forth through time and leaving these posts on the Internet so that one John can read it and see what was going on. He would leap around, leave another message. So the idea is that different Johns may have been writing these posts back then. In fact, there may be a John here now, according to the theory, and he's viewing everything that we're talking about, and he's going to go back to 2000 and post it on the Internet.
Okay, thanks, Oliver. Let's go to Nick, Oak Harbor, Washington, west of the Rockies. Go ahead, Nick.
Good evening, George.
Hi.
And your guest. I wanted to address your theory about John Titor possibly being a government insider. And I'm always amazed, and I don't mean any offense by this, but I'm always amazed how people like to find explanations for things that fit their present paradigm. And what I mean by that is I think that John spoke about some things that a government insider couldn't possibly have known even 10 years ago.
Well, you may be right about that, and I think it is only a theory. But, a lot of people have tried to think about this. And, back when it was happening and back when it started to gain notoriety, the theory was it had to be a group of people, that there was no way you could get one person who could fake drawings and pictures, who knew about the IBM computer, who knew about time travel, who knew about what was going on at CERN, who could make accurate guesses about world politics. So at the time, it was thought it was a group of people. But now, if you try to pinpoint that, a conspiracy like that, somebody would come forward and say, we were having a laugh, and here's what we did, and that hasn't happened yet, and that's kind of curious.
Oliver, what about rumors that you are John Titor?
You know, George, I get that all the time, and every time I'm on, you ask me about that, and the answer is no. I am not John Titor.
I keep asking, hoping one day you say yes.
I wish I was that clever. You know, if I was John Titor, I guess I would figure out some other way to continue the message or whatever. But no, I'm not John Titor.
Well, and if you were, I'm looking for, okay, how does this guy profit? How's he making money? You're not making any money at all, and the thing's now 10 years old. You must have the patience of Job if you're John Titor.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. I mean, all I do is run the website. Every now and then I check to see if there's any news, and I get a chance to talk to you. I mean, I find that pretty exciting enough.
Let's go to Jim in Shiloh, Illinois. Hey, Jim, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, George, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask your guest if John Titor had made any mention of multiple anti-gravity device UFOs, so to speak, or identified anti-gravity devices rather than just the time machine.
Yeah, he was asked once about UFOs, and his opinion was, he said, we don't know what they are, but he speculates that they are more sophisticated time machines. That's what he thinks they are. And as far as the gravity units, he was asked once if there were more than one time machine, and said, oh, absolutely. He said there's at least 10 units like mine, and there's even an advanced unit, a more advanced unit that other soldiers in his unit were using, which was more accurate, and you could travel farther or forward or backward.
This is just a great story, Oliver. Not only is it exciting, but when you look at these events unfold, and you then compare them to some of the statements that Titor made over the years, they are pretty uncanny, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you get a weird feeling up your back, when you see some of this stuff in the news. And like I said, George, if every month a new story didn't come out about time travel coming out of CERN, this wouldn't be that big a deal, but it just doesn't end.
What did his time machine look like?
Well, let's see. It was fairly large and heavy, and it was longer than it was, in width. And you can see the photos. Heck, all you got to do is look it up on Google and you can find it. But it basically looks like a large suitcase that's long, and it opened up at the top. And if you look at it, he describes, it operates by using two what he calls micro-singularities, which are mini black holes, and they're kept somehow encapsulated in the system. And I guess the gravity field is adjusted by injecting electrons on the surface of this thing. And the black holes have opposite spins and mass, which I guess allows them to create and manipulate the gravity field. And he talks about all the support systems that go along with it. He talks about, I think he called it a VGL system, which was a system of measuring the local gravity around the unit, which kept you basically locked to the Earth. Because a lot of people say, well, if you turn your time machine on, you're going to end up in space. Well, this system keeps that from happening. And there's cooling system and lasers and the computer that runs it. And if you look at this schematic, that's exactly what it looks like.
And he came back because he was looking for old computer parts, right?
Yeah, he claimed that in 2036, they needed a very obscure IBM computer that was manufactured in 1975 in Minnesota. And he said that the reason they needed it is it had some particular aspects to it that were not published by IBM and that only a handful of people knew. And, of course, at the time, nobody paid a whole lot of attention to this, but it wasn't until later after he left. And I had a chance to interview this guy. His name was Bob Dubkey, I think, and he was in Minnesota. And he came forward and said whoever this guy was, he either knew somebody that worked on the machine or he worked on it, because there's only about 5 people that knew the details that he described in those posts. And I thought that was pretty bizarre myself.
Let's go to Mary in Jacksonville, Florida on Coast to Coast. Hey, Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have a question. Is there a young boy by the name of John Titor that's around the age he's supposed to be?
Yeah, according to his mother and according to Larry, yes, there is a young John Titor in our time now. And I think he said in 1990, he was born in 98, so however old that would be, 12 or 13 now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. Great show.
There you go. I thought for a moment she was going to say she met the little guy.
Well, I'm Kay, and here he is.
Let's go to Pittsburgh. Hey, Mike, you're on with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, was listening to the show there a few years ago before election, and he said that we was going to have a woman president.
He did. I think he said there was speculation that a woman was going to run for president. That's correct. He did say that. Actually, the one definitive thing he did say about the president now is that they were going to compare themselves to Lincoln. And as you may recall, President Obama did do that at the early part of the election, and now I see in the news they're doing it again.
Yeah.
How about that? Okay, hey, thank you very much. Oliver, you've been watching this for 10 years. What's your personal gut tell you about the message? Not the man, but the message.
I think the message is a tragedy, in my opinion. I think if time travel is possible, when you look at the breadth of everything he said and his attitude and the way he did it, time travel is not something that we should fantasize about. It's one of those things that just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. I think that traveling in time may be very hazardous, may be very stressful, and it may change not only us, but wherever we go in ways that we can't possibly imagine. That's what I think the message is.
Let's go to Jerry, Atlanta, Georgia. Take it away, Jerry.
Good evening, George. Good evening. I believe I may be able to identify at least one of the sources of the going back to visiting your younger self. Robert A. Heinlein, I know that you're friends with Jerry Pournelle. That was a very famous part of Time Enough to Love when Lazarus Long traveled back prior to visiting his younger self and supposedly the more peaceful period right before World War I, but overshot it and actually ended up a few months before. I've always been highly suspicious of that part of the story. Add to the fact most of the drawings appear to be similar to line drawings that used to be done by the military in the 60s where they trotted and grade in draft school. I don't think it would be too hard to get a science fiction author and one of his draftsman buddies to draw up said pictures.
So you think the whole thing's a hoax, Jerry?
Possibly, very much so. I haven't seen any conclusive evidence.
Okay, but you're right. And if it is, well, you haven't ruled out a hoax, Oliver, have you?
I haven't, but one interesting thing to think about is John Titor may be a time traveler, but he might also be a liar. So there may be a whole lot of truth here and a few bits of untruth. The people that have speculated about those pictures, as you said, and consider also that the world John came from was much more different than ours. They were recovering from a world war, and technology was much more primitive than it is now because they're trying to recover. And, he said, hey, we use typewriters. We use printers. A lot of the things you don't use anymore, we do use. So some people have looked at those drawings and said, you know what, they look exactly like government drawings. This is exactly what they would look like. And, I've seen operation manuals from, fighter planes that people have compared it to. And if you look at those, they're just as crude and weird looking, just like those drawings are. So it's hard to say one way or the other.
What was the most profound thing you think John Titor said?
I think John was trying to warn us, and he was very angry about that. Early on, he said, things are going to change. You are going to lose your Constitution. You are going to go through a period of time where things that you were familiar with and that you hold on to are going to be torn away from you. And I'm afraid that message has gotten lost or convoluted because of, is it true, is it not true? But some of the things he said, the 10 things that he said that we should all do, if you look in the Post, I can't remember them offhand, but he gave a list he said, listen, to get ready for the future, here are 10 things you got to do. And I think things like that are lost. I think those are some of the most important things he said.
Well, I think so, too. Let's go to Alyssa in Portland, Oregon. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, George. How are you tonight?
Okay.
Hey, I was wondering what your friend who claims that the world's going to end here on May 21st and wants you to donate to his cause has to say about this John Titor theory.
Who knows? Now, don't call him my friend. I don't know him that well.
Your acquaintance.
My guest who's been on the show.
Did he mention anything about why he couldn't get the parts in the future?
Yeah, he said that the computer systems then, they couldn't find them. They couldn't identify the computer and they couldn't find them. And a lot of them have been damaged by EMP. So he said there were a lot of computers laying around, but none of them worked.
Talk us through the website, Oliver. We've got a few seconds here. Just tell us where people should go if they want more information on John.
Yeah,
Titor.
you could go to our website, which is johntitor.com. And, if you look at the website, I have to apologize. It's about 1 million years old, and we are in the process now of trying to update it, make it a little more user-friendly. So go there, take a look at our archives, and continue to watch it, because if anything happens quickly with Kay or with anything else, I'm going to put it right up there.
All right, very good. Oliver, thanks so much for being on the program. Do keep in touch with us if you get a chance to talk to Kay, the apparent mother of John Titor. Would you?
George.
All right, we'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Brooks Agnew joins us.